My name is Huey Lightbody, a visual artist, represented by Southside Contemporary here at 1309 Hull Street, my beloved gallery in the space that I call home. And They Call Me Pain is on exhibit here, my first solo exhibit with the gallery. And I'm appreciative to be here. I'm thankful for this space. A lot of love here. This is They Call Me Pain. It's an exhibition by me that is kind of rooted in the essences of attachment, addiction, compulsion, and that space in between, you know, the places we struggle with attachment and how we pull ourselves away from attachment. I think I've dealt a lot with that throughout my journey, throughout my life, throughout my creative journey, and coming to the space of becoming the creative that I am today. From my childhood in creation and, you know, dabbling in poetry and illustrations, I kind of shifted out of that and, you know, got really deeply into the academia of things. Through my journey and just dealing with those things and those conditionings arising in my life, I think I found a passion in, you know, kind of peeling back the layers of what that means to me and how I can touch base, you know, deeper with myself, and not just myself, but reflectively with others, and kind of enable, but in a new way, and redefine what enabling means. I want to enable people in the space of vulnerability, and really, you know, sit with that space of attachment within themselves and what that means for them. Like I said, you know, that space in between the things we find ourselves attached with, and as we pull ourselves away from it, I find that we experience the rawest of emotions in that space. And, you know, I found myself inspired by that. And I think as I grow within my creative journey, I think, you know, my inspiration has been tending to move more towards, like, how do I find myself more inspired by the bliss, you know, the presence and the more grounded nature of who I am, rather than that ungrounded, chaotic essence of those attachments and that addictive mentality, that survivalistic mentality, you know. I find that there's a certain grittiness to those emotions, to a certain rawness to those emotions, and I like to put that into the work. You can see it texturally in my pieces. I used to work a lot in, I would say, more built textures, and, you know, especially with this show, They Call Me Pain, I wanted to redefine what pain is. You know, we say, we call a number of different experiences we have pain, but what is pain? And so I think through my processes of creation and a lot of illustration, you know, while these are paintings, I think a lot of illustration goes into it, and I think that's a big part of my background. Calligraphy, illustration, a lot of drawings, and you'll see it in the mediums in my work. It's not all just paint. I use a lot of charcoal, I use a lot of ink, I use a lot of watercolor. I think I've started to tend more towards the illustrative background, and where I've built a lot of my, you know, creative essence. So like I said, I used to work a lot with, you know, more heavier textures. I used to use like concrete. I used to use tile adhesives and play with those in my work, but a lot of these pieces, they're a lot more flat. A lot more layers in sealing the pieces. So as I work with layers like the paints, the oil paints, the charcoal, the pens, I'm sealing those layers over and over and over again, and trying to create this, and not even trying, just creating it, these more flat textures. And you'll see it and it's more gestural, and you'll see it in that. And I think putting that essence of chaos into the textural parts of my work, I think, you know, just kind of hit a little harder, you know. Yeah. I want to bring you guys over to this piece, because I think it would help you understand, you know, that essence of flat texture a little bit deeper. And when I say flat texture, I don't even just mean the illustration or, you know, the physical texture of the piece. This piece is called Rent. If you can see those numbers in there and there's these dates, I was struggling with, you know, maintaining my space. I think the essences of survival and, you know, that addictive compulsive mentality was pulling me away from these senses of urgency with, you know, the thing that I need to survive, my home, you know, where I live, where I create. And really allowing myself to, and enabling myself to find myself inspired by the rawness of what those feelings were for me, you know, detaching myself from these things that were taking me away from that sense of urgency with the place that I live, the place that I'm able to create. You know, it again brought that feeling of grit, that feeling of grime in my experience, and reconditioning myself to find the urgency in the things that matter, re-inspiring myself in the things that matter, and the things that bring me bliss, to bring me happiness rather than pain. And I kind of used that as the background for this piece and built that foreground in the shape of what I was moving through. It feels dark sometimes, it feels scary, you know, and those are a lot of the words I get from people sometimes when they observe my work. But I don't think it's that, you know. I think sometimes the rawest and the darkest things are sometimes the most beautiful, because we wouldn't be able to experience the beauty in our lives without those things. And even here, you know, this piece, it has a lot to do with, you know, really just taking the time to make that decision, to pull ourselves from the conditionings we move through to gain the thing that we want, to gain the thing that we feel like we've been missing. Sometimes I feel like all I have to do is just one thing in my life, and a lot of times it's the conditionings and the things I'm going through, that's a survivalistic mentality that's keeping me from it. But if I just do that one thing, maybe I'll get to where I'm trying to go. Maybe my whole life will change if I just made one decision. And the title of that piece really sits heavily on that statement. You'll see a lot of green in these pieces. I think during the time of this collection and this series, I was sitting a lot with my heart space. And that is a lot more resemblance to like the chakra color of our heart space. And I think I was trying to reimagine what love meant to me, what those feelings of passion meant to me. And I was sitting in a really grimy, gritty space with that. And you know, where relationship is, where inspiration lies, where, you know, again, urgency lies, and maintaining the things that matter to me. And I was just really just trying to reshape that for myself. And so I think green is probably an underlying tone of all of these pieces, you know, and yeah. So even this piece, I've had people say it kind of reminded them of like a sex demon and things like that. And even in my journey, I've dealt with sexual addiction. You know, I've struggled with you know, sexuality since a young age. I feel like my youth was over-sexualized, especially being a male. But even then, I love that was an observation from this piece. While it wasn't necessarily what was being spoken of it, I love that was received from it, because that is a part of my journey. That is a part of all that I communicate. This piece is a lot about mistrial. It's a lot about trials and fire, you know, and destruction, and how destruction brings about the most beautiful in creation. Destruction is a part of creation. It's dualistic. A lot of my work has to do with duality as well. And you know, I think that this speaks to that ethos that just of how we need destruction, we need pain, we need and I don't even want to say pain, we just need mistrial. We need mistake to understand the beauty of life, to understand how we can grow, to gain the discernments, to gain, let's just say to gain, you know, to grow. If we don't have, put it this way, think of a forest. You know, some of the most beautiful forests grow from wildfires, and I think that was really in my heart during the creation of this piece right here. You'll hear me say grimy a lot, and I just think without the grime in my life, without the mistrials, without the heartaches, without the pain that I've experienced in my life, and I don't mean to put like so much weight on that word pain. I think pain is so beautiful, and I'll say that a lot. I think I wouldn't be able to find how beautiful life is without that. So a lot of my work it seems chaotic. It might seem overwhelming, you know, to the onlooker. A lot going on, a lot of emotion. But I like to translate that energy of who I am into my work in the most honest of vulnerability. Yeah. Yeah, let's come back here. Coming back to that idea of attachment, which is a big part of this exhibit. This piece is called A Promise, and if you look at it, it looks a lot like a serpent. A lot of my friends might say it looks like Rayquaza, the Pokemon, but it's really formed in the essence of a serpent, and a green one at that. And this piece kind of spoke to me in the ways of you know, breaking my own promises and the promises we've been given, and I think that just brings me right back into that idea of attachment. And when we break the promises with ourselves, the relationship we break with ourselves, and you know, the struggle it makes to reattach and believe and have faith in ourselves to move further and to grow further and to become anew, you know. And I think I've witnessed myself die a number of times, breaking these inner promises I've made with myself, and have to rebuild that trust and love within myself. And while the show is called, you know, They Call Me Pain, I think it has so much to do with love, with self-love, and what that means. And you know, I've always felt like we are constantly feel like we're just surviving, you know, but I think we thrive. We forget that we breathe, you know, we eat every day, we have access to water, you know, but I think the more we realize that we are alive, and in our living we are thriving, you know, with every day. I think that's a constant thing I'm trying to remind myself of when it comes to my work, when it comes to my daily life, when it comes to my passions. You know, I'm thriving, and sometimes I just need to sit down and remember, you know, who I am and what I'm doing, and what this means to me. And I think through the actions of just creating the work I do and giving that raw vulnerability to my work, I'm honest with myself, and I'm reaffirming that promise with myself, and I'm rebuilding the person that I know that I am, and constantly dying over and over again, you know, just to become. And in that constant revolving door of becoming, I find myself in a state of being. And in that space, my work has become such a prominent aspect to my life. It's almost necessary. I feel like I can't choose whether or not to do it. I have to. Yeah, this piece right here, it's called The Grimiest Shit. And I think it's just that, you know, just sitting and touching base with some of the grimiest shit of my life, and, you know, finding the ways that it is beautiful to me. I've had this conversation with loved ones, and, you know, the people who care about me, and they ask me, will I ever be inspired by, you know, the beautiful things in my life, you know, and there is so much beauty in my life. You know, I have a beautiful partner, you know, I have a loving family, and I think it's not that I necessarily fixate on the darkness or the darker parts of my life, but I think it's important to be real with them, to confront those things, you know, because they are a part of me. So just the same way I confront my happiness and I want to be with my happiness and be present with the happiness and joy and the beautiful things in my life, I think it's important that I touch base with my scars, you know, before I even, you know, gave myself, you know, skin art, tattoos. I loved my scars so much because they were a part of who I am. You know, they're my stories, and I can't get rid of them. I can't wash them off with soap. You know, they're truly parts of who I am. They tell stories of my experiences, and you know, again, without those experiences, I wouldn't be the person I am right now. I wouldn't be the person I am standing right in front of you. So I got to give thanks, and I think, you know, They Call Me Pain is just an ode to my experiences. It's me proclaiming gratitude for everything that I've navigated, and everything I will navigate, because this shit is not easy. Life is not easy. Growth isn't easy, and it takes some real confrontation with self. And every time I sit and push myself to create, or just allow, you know, the things that I've navigated to flow through me and speak unto the people who are observing, unto myself, you know, I'm being brutally honest. And that brutality and honesty, I think, is just so necessary. I love the people who are brutally honest and brutally speak to you, and, you know, they don't hold back. There's no reason to hold back. There's no reason to be dishonest. You know, I think that sense of honesty creates a bond. It creates a relationship that redefines this attachment that I've navigated throughout my life. It redefines what's real. And I don't want to be an illusion anymore. These pieces, while they might not look like anything necessarily real, I think they're the realest thing that I've ever seen, you know. They're brutal honesty, and brutality is a big part of who I am. And speaking of brutality, I want to bring you to this one, and it's called Real Bruiser. And Real Bruiser is truly just that. It's extremely figurative, and I feel like I've flown in and out of that figurative space. I think I even told Ray, my beloved gallerist, that I'm done with figurative art. I'm done with creating, you know, these figurative beings in my work, and I don't think I could let it go. I think when it comes through for me to create something that feels potent, something that looks familiar, not for myself as well, that almost looks like a reflection for me, you know, as if I'm looking at myself, or if I'm painting who I am in that immediate moment. I think it becomes more figurative, it becomes more punctual, it becomes familiar. And Real Bruiser, and even in its name, was just that for me. It was almost like wringing out the rag of brutality for me, and creating a being that was of brutalism, a brutal being. And I think that was really just like a conversation with myself, and in my fears and in my willingness, you know, to navigate those things that were alien forces for me, to navigate those things that I feel like were weakening my spirit and my being, and living it and being it. You'll see in some of my work, I write a little bit. I do some graffiti, and graffiti is a big inspiration in my work. I think it's grimy. I love grime. But you'll see gridlock on some of my work, and I started writing gridlock when I was probably 2018, when I first started painting and shifted out of, you know, my past experiences, leaving school, feeling suicidal at times. I got scammed for $20,000. That's something I touch base with a lot. I think I sometimes still even am navigating the immense loss and lack I felt from that. Having to drop out of school, not necessarily having to, but choosing to. That was a big decision for me, and I felt like it was one of the best decisions I made. I felt like I needed to do that. I was in the hospital for 4 days in ICU. I fractured my sinus cavity, and just through that time, I felt like I had hit this moment in my life that felt like gridlock. That felt, it's hard to find the words, man. It felt claustrophobic. I felt lost, but I think I fell in love with that feeling of lost. I fell in love with feeling like I was alienated from myself. I fell in love with feeling like I was stuck, because I think, navigating those conditionings and survivalistic mentality and addiction and compulsion, once I'm struck with that feeling of urgency, that feeling of loss, that feeling like I have no other escape, I think I do the most beautiful things. And again, I think a big part of my work and the reason it exists in my life is it's a learning force to help me shift that inspiration from feeling like I need that sense of urgency in the most difficult of times, and bringing it about in the times that are the most beautiful and flowing and light. And I can't wait to see what I'm capable of when I grow into the being that is able to do that. And I'm still growing to do that. And I'm thankful that I'm still growing, because it just means this will forever grow. Speaking on that, and even on that journey, just still growing, this piece is called Avoidance. And I think I've dealt with avoidance in the space of communication, and right here, this piece here. And just dealing with that space of avoidance, whether it be in communication with others and people I care about, or just with myself. And I think it goes both ways, back to that dualism. I think the things I navigate, I'm going to run into in intimate relationship. I think all are a reflection of me, especially the ones I hold close. And navigating avoidance in that way, I think it prolongs my journey, for sure. But I have to be thankful for it. I think my journey was meant to be prolonged. I think that's fated for me. I think there's no reason to rush or torture myself to be the person I imagine myself being. I think I'm more, I think I admire a lot more the natural flow of me becoming the person I'm meant to be. Embracing that essence of avoidance and who it like what that is to me and why I do it. And I think the more I refine myself, and I think this whole exhibit speaks to refinement, but the more I refine myself and learn to grow in the being that I am, avoidance really becomes discernment, and pain becomes bliss, and loss becomes abundance. And yeah, they call me pain is really an ode to gratitude, and I'm thankful to share it with everyone.